Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Delegates from over 200 countries convene in Dubai for COP28 Summit. Host UAE expected to push for low-carbon future that includes fossil fuels. More hostages expected to be released by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners amidst truce. UN Refugee Agency scales up aid delivery in Gaza. A US military aircraft with 8 people on board crashes into the sea in western Japan. One crew member reported dead. NASA chief on a visit to India discusses collaboration and launching joint satellite with ISRO, hails India's Chandrayaan-3 success. More hostages are expected to be released by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners on Wednesday, which is the last day of an extended truce in Gaza. So far, Hamas has released 81 hostages in exchange for 180 Palestinian inmates. Earlier, Israel said that the truce could be further extended if Hamas continued to free at least 10 Israeli hostages in a day. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated that the country will push for the release of all hostages held in Gaza without exception. Hamas is still holding over 150 people hostage. And Chief of Israel's Armed Forces Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi on Thursday said that the army was ready to resume combat against Hamas in Gaza as and when the mediated ceasefire between Israel and Hamas comes to an end.
The return of the hostages is a bright spot for all of us. It is also further evidence of the results of the significant military pressure and the resolute ground operation. We have created the conditions for the return of our citizens home. We will continue doing so. We are preparing for the continuation of the operation to dismantle Hamas. It will take time. These are complex goals, but they are justified beyond measure.
DD India correspondent Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, what is the latest on the release of more hostages and prisoners?
Hello, Shubhendu. Well, look, hostilities are set to resume tomorrow, 7 a.m. local time. That is in less than 17 hours away. Still no deal. This is apparent, but we are hearing from Palestinian sources telling Reuters news agency that both sides have agreed to some sort of an extension, but no formal announcement as yet. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister's office, it is refusing to comment on these talks, but what we are hearing from Benjamin Netanyahu's establishment there is they believe that there are 160 hostages still being kept inside the Gaza Strip, with around 8 of those children. So this is certainly very, very concerning. And look, a lot of effort is going into these hostage talks, of course. The Prime Minister's office also says that it has received the latest names of this 6th batch of hostages that are expected to be freed from the Gaza Strip in the coming hours. Still no idea who these people are. We do know that there are 10 Israelis on that list, also 2 Russian captives. But one concerning insight into this is that this little baby, he is the youngest captive being held in the Gaza Strip, just 10 months old. His name is reportedly not on that list. And Israel says that it believes that Hamas has handed Kafir Babik over to another Palestinian faction. So, look, this is very, very worrying, of course, for his family.
Right, Sarah, and what are you learning about the diplomatic push exchange to extend the truce?
Well, Well, look, this is ongoing, and this is certainly one of the things that US Secretary of State Blinken will be discussing when he's expected to touch down right here in Tel Aviv in the morning. He's expected to arrive at the same time as this truce extension will run out. He's been in Europe today discussing this, really pushing other leaders to join in calls to make this more of a lasting ceasefire, a durable ceasefire. But as I mentioned, so far, nothing durable, nothing solid, concrete has been agreed upon here on the ground. And look, it is really, really concerning given the humanitarian situation also that people in the Gaza Strip are facing. There's a real critical shortage of aid. People say they have not enough food, not enough water, not enough medical supplies. We do know, according to the United Nations, that 1.7 million Palestinians have been internally displaced. And that number just keeps on growing as Israel continues to ask people to move from the northern part of the Gaza Strip down into the south. Now, another important point on the humanitarian front is the UN aid chief, Martin Griffiths. He is today in Jordan. He is pushing for the Kerem Shalom crossing, that is a tri-border crossing near the Rafah crossing. He's asking for that to be opened in addition to the Rafah, simply due to the fact is that the Rafah border crossing was constructed as a foot crossing, not a truck crossing. And this is why these trucks have been so slow to enter Gaza.
Sarah, thanks very much for joining us with those updates. Israel's army released visuals of humanitarian aid trucks reportedly leaving Israel on Tuesday to deliver gas and diesel to Gaza through Egypt. The prolonged six-day truce in the conflict has allowed nearly 800 aid trucks to enter Gaza. Also, the first of 3 US planes with humanitarian supplies for Gaza landed in Egypt on Tuesday. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to visit the Middle East, focusing on securing a lasting ceasefire and release of all Hamas-held hostages. This marks his 3rd trip to the region since the October 7th attack. DD India's Nick Harper gets us more from Washington.
The US's top diplomat is returning to the Middle East for more talks on the conflict in Gaza. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit Israel, the West Bank and the United Arab Emirates during the course of this week. The US State Department says he'll head there after wrapping up a visit to North Macedonia. The Biden administration is aiming to push for more humanitarian aid to enter Gaza and to secure the release of all the remaining hostages that were kidnapped by Hamas during the attack on October the 7th. But Washington is also pressing for another extension to the Israel-Hamas ceasefire beyond the 2-day truce extension, even for a permanent end to the fighting. Part of Blinken's aim is to discuss a long-term solution to the crisis and trying to engage Israel on what happens next, including the long-talked-about creation of an independent Palestinian state through the two-state solution. The Biden administration has already ruled out long-term Israeli occupation of Gaza, instead calling for a permanent political solution to the long-standing conflict. Blinken's visit comes after CIA Director William Burns held meetings in Qatar on Tuesday. He met with his Israeli and Egyptian counterparts, including the director of Israel's intelligence service, Mossad. Burns has become a main player in the Biden administration's efforts to get all the hostages released. As the former ambassador to Jordan, the CIA director has experience working in the Middle East and building trust with leaders in the region. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Let's talk about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia launched 21 drones and 3 cruise missiles overnight on Ukraine in retaliation to a Ukrainian drone caught flying towards Moscow, which was destroyed mid-air. Ukraine Air Force claims all the drones and missiles were destroyed before reaching their targets. Earlier on Wednesday, Russia's defense ministry said a frigate of its Black Sea Fleet launched an attack with 4 cruise missiles on Ukraine's military infrastructure. It was not clear when the attack took place. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba joined a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels as the European Union has delivered 300,000 tons of artillery shells to Ukraine. Kuleba called for more support from military alliance to ensure that Kiev has enough weapons for its counter-offensive against Russia. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Minister David Cameron are among top leaders attending the meeting that is also aimed at discussing Ukraine's NATO membership bid.
2 weeks ago, I was in Ukraine saying we needed to do everything that we could to help the Ukrainians repel this appalling aggression by Putin. And I'll be building consensus for that view here at NATO today.
At the meeting, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg reiterated the alliance's commitment to provide financial and military aid to Ukraine.
Allies are providing unprecedented military, financial and humanitarian support to Ukraine and supporting the necessary reforms on Ukraine's path to NATO membership. Russia's war of aggression continues to cause untold suffering. It threatens the security of Europe and the stability of the entire international rules-based system. Allies continue to stand with Ukraine for your security and for our security. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Turkey has told Sweden that it expects to ratify its long-delayed accession to NATO military alliance within weeks. Sweden and Finland requested to join NATO last year after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. After initial objections, Turkey endorsed Finland's membership bid in April but has kept Sweden waiting.
So we look forward to see the ratification finalized. Yesterday, I had a bilateral with my colleague, the Foreign Minister of Turkey, Hakan Fidan, where he told me that he expected the ratification to take place within weeks. And of course, we don't take anything for granted from the side of Sweden, but we look forward to this being completed.
Moving on, COP28 host UAE is expected to push for a low-carbon future that includes fossil fuels, as delegates from over 200 countries prepare to convene at Thursday's climate summit in Dubai. UAE is one of the world's largest oil producers. The push comes as nations remain divided over phasing out coal and oil and ramping up technologies like carbon capture that curb fossil fuels' environmental impacts. Replacing fossil fuels with clean energy sources like solar and wind power is among the key focus areas of the summit. As Dubai gets ready to host COP28 Summit from 30th November, India is one of the top influential voices for developing countries at the annual COP events. DD India's Taposh Bhattacharya gets us more.
In a pivotal moment for global climate action, the spotlight turns to the upcoming COP28 Summit hosted by the United Arab Emirates. Set against the backdrop of the urgent need for a rapid transition towards sustainability, COP28, convening in Dubai on November 30, navigates the delicate balance between economic transformation and sustainable development.
We are looking forward to participating in COP28 at our highest level. Honorable Prime Minister will himself be here. And I would say the world is looking forward to his participation because every time he participates, he shares his vision, which the world takes very seriously. Right since the Paris Agreement was signed, we have shown the world that we have walked our talk when it comes to climate change. We have taken the lead.
As the holder of the COP presidency, the UAE shoulders the responsibility of steering discussions towards critical agreements. Key tasks include securing commitments on the global stocktake of climate action, building consensus on the global goal on adaptation, and establishing the Loss and Damage Fund.
Following the G20 announcement, where climate has been really put high up in the agenda, I think India is going to put all its weight behind to make this happen. And I think funding constraints or any other constraints will not really get into the way.
The urgency of the situation looms large, demanding the mobilization of an estimated $4 trillion annually by 2030 to support the clean energy transition. Achieving a net zero goal by mid-century requires collaboration on an even grander scale. The recent participation of the UAE in the G20 summit in Delhi adds a layer of influence, with global emission reduction targets echoing in the corridors of COP28.
Carbon footprint is all around us in every single metal that we produce or in every single thing that we use. So that way, I think India has seen innovations coming across all three sectors.
The UAE, acknowledging its role as a significant oil producer, contemplates support for carbon capture storage technologies. Amid these challenges, promising initiatives like the Green Hydrogen Innovation Center and the Global Biofuel Alliance emerge, offering glimpses of a cleaner, more sustainable future.
As we approach COP28, the world watches with bated breath. Can UAE, in the heart of an oil-centric landscape, lead the way towards a more sustainable future? The answer lies in the discussion, the debate, and the decision that will unfold in Dubai. The journey to balance energy transition, economic transformation, and sustainable development has never been more critical. With camera person Jaishankar, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Dubai.
The Babs temple is coming up soon in Abu Dhabi. It is said to be the first traditional Hindu temple in the Middle East. Swami Brahma Vihari has said that this temple will strengthen the cultural ties between the countries. Swamiji applauded the work of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in strengthening action for climate protection.
It's very appropriate at this time that the mandir, which is going to be opened on 14th February 2024, at the, of course, most deserving and noble hands of our beloved Prime Minister and His Holiness Mahan Swami and the leadership of the UAE. I believe that a culture which has this depth and a leader who has this culture, like our beloved Prime Minister, is very appropriate. He's coming for the opening of COP28 and at a platform where the world is uniting to save the earth. As a part of saving the earth, we need to save human beings as well. That's why this mandir is very appropriate, that it saves the values that keeps us human. Values of love, peace and harmony.
We're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. US military aircraft with 8 people on board crashes into the sea in western Japan. NASA chief on a visit to India discusses collaboration and launching joint satellite with ISRO. And daring feat of a 32-year-old adventurer navigating through ice tunnels in Arctic Circle.
What is your priority number 1?
Build the brand of the organization so it's well known around the world.
What is your challenge number 1?
Capacity.
Where do you see world infrastructure in 2030?
Much better informed with risk, like risk information that is being used a lot more.
And by 2050?
At 2050, most infrastructure that's being built is resident infrastructure.
What is the first task cut out for you now?
COP28.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. A Virgin Atlantic passenger jet powered by 100% sustainable aviation fuel completed its New York-bound maiden flight on Tuesday. This is the first time a commercial airliner has flown long-haul on 100% sustainable aviation fuel. It had no paying passengers or cargo. The flight carried only Virgin billionaire founder Richard Branson and a few others. It will return to London using conventional jet fuel.
And we need to make sure that it doesn't eat into the food supply, that it's like the waste product, like the stalks, say, of corn, not the corn itself, the cooking oil from, say, fish and chips, instead of throwing it away, you turn it into jet aviation fuel, and so it's exciting, and we believe it can be done.
A US military aircraft crashed near an island in western Japan on Wednesday with 6 people on board. Japan's Coast Guard found grey-colored debris reportedly from the aircraft, confirmed that 1 crew member had been killed and the condition of 2 others was unclear. The crash happened around 2:47 p.m. local time near the Yakushima Island. US forces in the region are gathering more information. One of China's leading epidemiologists say the country's outbreak of respiratory illnesses has yet to peak. State media and social media posts report large numbers of children suffering from pneumonia, overloading hospitals and clinics. DD India's Andrew Wood sent us this report from Hong Kong.
Well, it's not an outbreak of one disease, it's actually an outbreak of several respiratory illnesses. The main ones are pneumonia, affecting children, and influenza or flu that's affecting adults. Now, the head of China's Infectious Diseases Center has said that he expects the number of flu cases to overtake the number of child pneumonia cases before long. And he also said that he thought that China had the resources to be able to deal, to cope with these outbreaks. And that's probably to try and assuage worries that it doesn't, because there's been plenty of, even state media have been reporting from hospitals that seem to be overloaded with cases, particularly of children. And there's plenty of social media confirming that as well, and reports sometimes of schools being closed because there aren't enough children to turn up for classes. Now, of course, China's reputation for telling the truth and telling it quickly was very badly affected by the early days, during the early days of COVID, because it didn't reveal to the rest of the world the full scale and the problems that the disease might be causing when it was first noted towards the end of 2019. And there are worries now emerging abroad that China, well, there may be sort of more to this outbreak than meets the eye. One doctor writing in Foreign Policy magazine in the United States suggested that one of the reasons why there might be so many cases of this mycoplasma pneumonia was because these particular bacteria, or these strains of bacteria, had developed perhaps a resistance to some of the antibiotics that are only available or only given to children who are 8 years or younger. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood, reporting for DD India.
NASA is set to train an Indian astronaut for the upcoming mission to the International Space Station by the close of 2024. The announcement comes after a high-level delegation of NASA, led by the Administrator, Bill Nelson, called on Indian Minister of Science and Technology, Atomic Energy and Space, Dr. Jitendra Singh, in New Delhi on Tuesday. The two sides also discussed over the joint launch of microwave remote sensing satellite for Earth observation, named NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar, in the first quarter of next year. Abbreviated NISAR is targeted for launch on board India's GSLV. Data from NISAR will be highly suitable for studying the land ecosystems. ISRO and NASA have formed a joint working group on human spaceflight cooperation and are exploring cooperation in radiation impact studies. The Indian side informed that a concept paper on the implementing arrangement is under consideration between NASA and ISRO. ISRO is also exploring the feasibility of utilizing NASA's hypervelocity impact test facility for testing the Gaganyaan module. On the India-US security cooperation, India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi says during the course of discussions, US side shared some inputs pertaining to nexus between organized criminals, gun runners, terrorists and others. Bagchi said during the discussions, India indicated that it takes such inputs seriously since they impinge on Indian national security interests as well. He added that relevant Indian departments were already examining the issue. On 18th November 2023, Indian government constituted a high-level inquiry committee to look into all relevant aspects of the matter. The Indian government will take necessary follow-up action based on the committee's findings. A national workshop on leveraging private finance for urban infrastructure development, learnings from G20 Infrastructure Working Group, has been organized by the Indian Finance Ministry. The event was addressed by the IFC Director and Regional Head of Industry, Asia Pacific Infrastructure, Isabel Chatterton.
Sector innovation and finance will need to be leveraged to address the complex and growing needs for urban infrastructure development and service. Attracting and unlocking private sector capital and innovation is absolutely fundamental to create the cities of tomorrow.
While Secretary of the Department of Economic Affairs in Ministry of Finance, Ajay Seth, said over 50% of our population resides in cities, he said urbanization, if managed efficiently, can lead to sustainable growth.
Over 50% of Earth's population resides in cities. Urbanization, if managed efficiently, can lead to sustainable and inclusive growth and increased productivity. However, it poses significant challenges, such as the demand for affordable housing, climate-resilient infrastructure, basic services, and employment for the urban poor living in informal settlements. According to a World Bank report, India will need to invest over $800 billion over the next 15 years, on an average of $55 billion per annum into infrastructure, urban infrastructure.
Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Manoj Joshi, said they are working with the states for value capture financing.
Organized, we do urban planning in our peri-urban area, the better we would do in value generation. Second area in which we probably again are working with the states, and we keep talking in very good terms, called value capture financing. We are doing metro in 27 states, 27 cities in India, and there is a lot of scope along the metro for value capture financing.
The year of 2023 is being celebrated as the year of India Alumni of Indian Council for Cultural Relations. The High Commission of India in Sri Lanka, through its cultural arm, Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre, organised an exhibition, Chitralekha, in Colombo in October. The artist whose work was displayed at the exhibition had studied art at various Indian universities under ICCR scholarships. Speaking to our correspondent, artists described their experiences and how the Indian Connect enriched their lives professionally and personally.
Chitralekha commemorates significant milestones such as 75 years of establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Sri Lanka and 25 years of establishment of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre in Colombo. It's also instrumental in celebrating the year of India Alumni.
I went to India in 1993 and I joined the Benares Hindu University Faculty of Visual Arts, and I came back to Sri Lanka and started my career as a lecturer there.
And I choose University of Baroda because in Sri Lanka there are no any place to study in art history. So there are few places to study art, basically drawing, painting, and sculpturing and everything. I completed my master in art history in 2019.
We have a lot of feelings and a lot of things. We can't say these things in word. We can't give any word for that feelings. So I try to that feeling how I create in my art, my painting, and I always try to give some shapes for these feelings using colors, shapes, and different techniques.
The art exhibition bridges the emotions of people of the two nations through art. The exhibition also serves as a bridge between the two nations, as well as provides a space for the artists who studied in India to display their work. For DD India, Ahmed Moin Farooqi from Colombo.
Before we wrap up, let's take you through an incredible tale of adventure. In a daring feat, a 32-year-old Catalan adventurer navigated ice tunnels along the glacial river in Svalbard archipelago of Norway and became the first to conquer the ice waterfall, which he named Philip's Ladder, as a tribute to the dedicated crew which ascended to the ice cap with the ladder, trekking 11 kilometers across ice to reach the glacial river. A fascinating adventure. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. We're also there on YouTube. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.